All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Wireheads podcast. My name is Emmerron, and then this is my co-host Diamond Dust. We are Wireheads. We are net runners. We like net running. It is fun. Today, because net runners have this sense of being absolutely fucking nerdy and doing everything in their power to be perceived as the geeks of the dark future, we only thought it appropriate, especially because we are going to be interviewing James Hutt tomorrow as we are recording this, that we cover the line of DLC that he was kind of the origin point for, those being the Elflines Online DLCs, of which at the time of this recording, there are 4. So Diamond went over in part 1 the first 2 of these, which is the base Elflines Online DLC, as well as the expansion pack 1 DLC. I have the distinct pleasure of covering Daeric Sylar's guide to Elflines Online, and then finally, and most importantly, I get the distinct pleasure of covering Elflines Online, the trading card game, which I love this game. Like, honestly, truly, I love the trading card game. It's super fun. Those of you who don't know, I am a long-time trading card game player. This thing behind me is a trading card game mascot from a game that is no longer around. The medal he is wearing is one that I won like 5 years ago for becoming regional champion in a game called Cardfight Vanguard. I love trading card games. They have spent a long time in my life being part of what I do. And I really only dropped them when I went like full-time content creation because I have no money for it. So with that said, let me introduce you to the first of the 2 DLCs which I will be covering, which is Daeric Sylar's Guide to Elflines Online. So to give you the introduction, hi, I'm Daeric Sylar, and welcome to my leveling guide. I've been playing ELO pretty religiously since launch, and I'm enjoying it even more now that it's my full-time job. Relatable. I lead Nature's Thorns on the Night City server. We've run Heart of Miasma in under 2 hours and have the pauldrons to show for it. I wear them even on my cosmetic sets. If you're experiencing the Elflands for the first time, you'll likely want to take your time leveling your elf to rank 10. This guide isn't about getting to rank 10 as fast as possible. Most people who want that will just buy their account anyway. Don't worry about these gonks. You'll always be able to tell who bought their elf by how easy it is to kill them in PvP. Since dungeon loot from early dungeons is still relevant even at rank 10, you'll likely outgear them anyway. With this guide, you'll be able to experience all ELO has to offer, and you won't end up farming for dungeon loot that you missed while leveling at rank 10. Your elf will be decked out in pre-raid best in-slot gear. But for me, the most prize loot I've ever acquired in ELO is love. Writing this guide has been a journey in itself for me, which started with me getting laid off. It would not have been possible without the loving support of my girlfriend, Morlissa Eversoul. Thanks are also due to my neighbor Susan Miller, who helped immensely with copy editing and layout. I really couldn't have done it without either of you. Once again, as we talked about in the first part, he is clueless as
That's right.
So strap your Rush Revolution on tight, because we're about to take a journey from the Elvish Highlands to Mount Poison, fighting every monster and clearing every dungeon along the way. Oh my goodness. The story in this is truly it's so
Daeric.
good. It's my neighbor. I love it. I love it so much. Holy shit. All right, so starting off this DLC, we were given a full map of the Elflands and ELO, which, fun fact, if you want to buy a full-size version of this map, I believe it is available as a print-to-mail thing you can buy on DriveThruRPG.
Really?
Deadass. I'm 99% sure.
Oh my God.
Diamond, you research that while I start getting into the DLC here.
I gotta find out now.
You dive on deep there, and because I probably need to get it for my wall of posters, honestly. But I'm 95% sure it's there. So, so Daeric's leveling path. By following this path, I promise you'll be able to level your rank to elf to rank 10 in 26 easy steps, starting with A, Elfhold, and ending with Z, the heart of miasma. If you have any questions, visit my guarded patch, Nature's Thorns HQ. There you'll find detailed tutorial videos about elf builds, dungeon crawling strategies, and monster fighting tactics. Good luck, new elf. I look forward to seeing you on Elflines Online. So what follows now, my wonderful audience, is a literal leveling guide and gear guide to Elflines Online, which is beautiful. It'd take me a really, really long time to kind of go through this beat by beat, unlike the last DLC we covered, where it's like 10 players and then 10 elves on the server. So I'll try to summarize these because I do want to give them their honor, but I'm not going to read them verbatim. So if you feel I've missed a detail, or if you want to read them for yourself, again, all these DLCs we're talking about in this episode are available through Artel Saurian Games on their website on the DLC page. And they gave them their own section. That's how like beloved this series of DLC content is. So we start off in Elfhold, which is a city, which is your spawn point. This is literally like your beginning part of the game. It is a safe zone from getting PK'd. The tutorial takes place there. And what Daeric recommends, though, is that you should make your way up to Hero's Point rather than trying to go off into the world without completing the tutorial, because there's always PKers kind of camping the edges of this. Like any true full PvP game, there will be people who just try to fucking kill you at your newest because they want to feel tough and strong about themselves, and they're really small and sad inside. So the next point here is Hero's Point, which is the village he sends you to. And Daeric makes a point of saying you're underleveled for the quests here right now, but the monsters should be formidable even at rank 0. Are farmable, excuse me, even at rank 0. So this also tells us something that maybe isn't as obvious in the earlier DLCs. You will start the game at rank 0. So rank 1 is something you actually have to earn. It's not where you start. So his advice is to kill all the monsters here until you reach rank 1, get some usable armor from the quest reinforcements for Hero's Point, then make your way up to Black Mountain Pass. Once you're there, that is a dungeon. And he says here, remember how players were trying to kill you outside Elfhold? Black Mountain Pass is worse, and it's non-optional. Luckily, you don't have to kill all the monsters in the dungeon to get to the other side. Only 2 enemy packs are required and 1 boss, Raging Gremlin, an elite gremlin who always has Blood Rage active. The rest you can sneak past. Weekday nights are the best time to attempt your first clear Black Mountain Pass without interruption. So again, we get some interesting little story bits here. And some of these areas are very much, they're ripe for hooks in adventures that you can run for your party, which is always something I love as a GM, is like when the adventure itself isn't like spelled out for you, but there's like enough of an interesting like start to one that you're like, well, now I kind of want to write that adventure. And so you do. And it's great. So next we get to the Autumn Palace, which is another city. Once you get through Black Mountain Pass, it can be tempting to immediately relax and enjoy questing in the Dark Lowlands. First, you should run through the Scar and Twisted Forest, get to the Autumn Palace, the largest city and player hub in the Elflands. Joining a beginner-friendly Elfline is a good idea at this point. Level up to at least rank 2 in Dark Lowlands before heading to Old Hero's Point for your first real dungeon experience. So now we get to Old Hero's Point, which is you'll want a group of at least 3 to tackle the dungeon. Don't listen to other guides that tell you to skip it. You'll want to full clear the dungeon. To fully clear it, you'll need to beat all 3 bosses and then return the gems they drop to the gold statue in the middle of town. Then you'll have to beat the final boss, Shadow of Pain, a restless spirit with 70 HP. The Shadow's charm hides you on the map from the item scrying effects, which will save your life from PKers while you're solo leveling later on. Trust me. So fun fact, by the way, for those of you who have not watched my Neon Inferno series, I ran this dungeon in our ELO episode near the end of season 1. I literally took this and I just made the dungeon and I just made it happen. And I had a blast doing that. So actually, Diamond, just because I've not watched Eddies and Elflines, how did you take any things out of this DLC, like in terms of dungeons or areas?
I use this as my plot line for like when they were in the Elflands.
Oh really? Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So Black Mountain Pass, I kind of handled that like how and yes, I'm gonna make a reference to FF14. How like we use Shastasha or
Sastasha, yeah.
Yeah, Sastasha. And that, like Black Mountain Pass, 1-to-1, like we can get in there. It's pretty easy. Old Heroes Point, the party ended up going and clearing the whole dungeon in one go. And then returning back. Like, these guys, I could not wipe the party to save my life. I could not.
So once you're through Old Heroes Point, you get to the Empty Vein. So once you hit rank 3 in the Scar and get your title, you're ready to take on Empty Vein, the first subterranean dungeon in ELO. These types of dungeons all have a massive problem. They create a choke point at the entrance that attracts PKers. If it's a weekend, try to take a higher ranked player from your Elfline with you for defense. Empty Vein is a linear, story-based dungeon where you follow a ghost who explains the backstory of the Scar and its creation. After beating the Miasma Golem, a golem with a purple color swap, the final challenge is a timed section where you must escape the dungeon as it crumbles around you while being constantly attacked by Zazaliths. Thank you. Bark shields will want to run this dungeon until they get a Golem Heart, a two-handed shield with 15 HP that regenerates out of combat. So again, they're giving us gear ideas too here, which is like honestly really, really cool. I really like that. Next, we have Dripping Cove, which is another dungeon. Do you have a story?
So Dripping Cove, I decided to make difficult terrain a real fucking problem for everyone. And when they went to go fight the final boss, Child of Slime, they had to deal with just difficult terrain during the fight. And also, slimes are a pain in the ass to fight. However, you do get a nice bow out of it, the Emerald Slime Bow. And Sasha was running around with that. She was the party's archer as we did Dripping Cove. So
beautiful.
Port Treasure.
Oh, yeah, I have something to say about Port Treasure, which is hilarious. Let me just. I'm trying to. Of course, it's being dumb. I'm just trying to add LCC's question to our because he asked a question in my chat, and I just want to try and get this into the QA document, but it is being the big dumb. So, I am struggling. I can type this out real quick though. So it's if your players are trying to buy level 10 ELO characters, do you let them build them or they get what they get? And that's like the spirit of that question. So we'll answer that at the end there. The next one, so Port Treasure. So here's the thing. When I went to Gen Con last year, and I knew because of the way Gen Con sets its events up, that I would be in James Hutt's ELO game. I had any of the people watching Neon Inferno at the time, or any of the crew that were in Neon Inferno at that time, I said, if you have questions, please let me know what they are. I will try to ask when I can. Any questions you want me to ask of the ELO crew, or the ELO crew, the RTG crew. But especially, I'll be with James Hutt. So if you have ELO questions, please tell me, because he'll know them. And one of them, I think it was Cody, had the question of, what's the most degenerate part of the game? Like, every MMO has that one place where all the ERPers gather, where all the degenerate shit happens. And, Balmung's the server, and Limsa's the spot on that server.
I thought that was Ul'dah, where that went down.
Balmung is kind of everywhere. I would say on most servers, Limsa Lumensa is kind of the place if you're looking to find things. That said, so when I got to Gen Con and I get to the table of James Hutt, and I'm like, James, my team is going to kill me if I don't ask you this question. What is the most degenerate town in ELO? And he said, of course, it's Port Treasure. It's the pirate town. It's always the fucking pirate town, Emmerron. And I'm like, you're right. I should have thought about that one a little bit closer.
I got a feeling that's where James got the inspiration from then.
No, not Limsa. No. He got it from Booty Bay in World of Warcraft, which is, it's literally a port town in that game. So it's a port of name. Yeah, so a port of ill deeds converted into a trade hub out of necessity. Its original reputation still lingers just below the surface. Port Treasure is the second most popular player hub on ELO. You have to be rank 4 to board the ships, at which point the game really opens up, and you can have several options for leveling. Many elf lines that can't afford housing in the Autumn Palace have their headquarters here. Since this is a central location for transportation, it's common to gather here before going to a raid. By extension, this also means that the AFKers are all there, Limsa. The ERPers are all there, Limsa. So yeah, that's. But the fact that it's got ships and stuff, that's very Booty Bay. Booty Bay was the same exact way. For a long time, that was your port town.
Giant buff men just standing in a chest puffed out.
Yeah, exactly. Just big, pale, muscular men standing all around the central plaza of the town. Yeah. So next we get to the Deep Grave, which is a dungeon. A rank 4 dungeon, but one that many players skip entirely since it's long, and its best drop, Ghost Finger Gloves, giving +2 to pick lock, pickpocket, are only relevant to quick hands who aren't all that common to begin with. Personally, I played this game to have fun, unlike some people, and I love Deep Grave. Its winding layout makes you feel like you're exploring a labyrinth, and the fact that it changes its layout every month keeps it fresh. The final boss being the ghost of Amberina, an elite restless spirit with 70 HP. The hero's love interest from the original single-player games is also super cool. So this is a really interesting little bit of lore. James said, because a lot of people think that Elflines is James Hutt's brainchild. It is not actually entirely his brainchild. So Elflines was a JRPG that Mike Pondsmith made in the original Cyberpunk game. And James found it and was like, well, what if we just made an MMO version of this? And that was something that was in Night City by the time of the Red. So when they mentioned the original single player game, that is what they're talking about. It was a single player JRPG before it was an MMO.
Wow, it's just like the MMO RPG is making reference to the previous games before it.
Wow.
What other games do that? Wow.
I could not tell you which other games do that. Not even a little bit. So
yeah, also like the way I handled dungeons though is it would just be like, groups of mobs that you'd be like your trash pulls and then your bosses. But also describing what it looked like. Now, Deep Grave, I changed what the bosses were. from what I originally rolled, because everybody figured out, okay, well that might be what it is. Well, it's turn of the month, everybody's paying rent. I gotta change who the boss is, or who the mini bosses are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fun. So now we got the point of no return. So this is the only elvish settlement remaining on Aethernox, a rough and tumble frontier town run by adventurers for adventurers. So this is gonna be like your end game town. This is where like the boats drop off here, and then beyond this is bleak wilderness, basically. So the apparently the outside of the town, the monsters get bunch more difficult than they would have before. And so then this takes us to First Hold, a dungeon. So it is the first dungeon on Aethernox, and is one of the most challenging dungeons in the game, especially considering how you can enter it as early as rank 5. In the dungeon, you'll be hunting down elite Zazalifs, guarded by gremlins and bearwolves through the streets of First Hold, looking for one that is the key to the treasury. Then you'll have to defeat the treasure golem, a golem that summons 2 cursed heads at half health. One of these heads must be killed for the boss to be killable, but it's impossible to tell which one. Morlissa and I had to farm this dungeon for weeks to get our poison knife, a dagger with a permanent poison coating to drop. So then we get on to Scorched Pass, which is another rank 5 dungeon. Connects the Scorchlands to the jungle of dead elves. Like Black Mountain Pass, it's a PvP hotspot, except Scorched Pass is much worse. During peak hours, expected to be shut down by an entire PvP elf line. Not only does this mean that access to the jungle is blocked, it also means that if you're on the other side, you likely won't be able to escape the jungle of dead elves without paying the elf line in the pass, if they're even accepting tolls. I've lost count of the number of times Nature's Thorns has had to cancel a raid because a crucial elf was pass locked. Secretary is constantly asked to patch this in interviews, to the point where the devs always repeat the same answer. PvP is a core part of ELO's player experience, and Scorched Pass is intended to facilitate emergent world PvP. Basically, don't log out of the jungle of in the jungle of dead elves before raid night or on a Thursday. Beautiful.
Oddly specific.
Yeah, it's highly specific. So next we have the Valley of Cinders, which is another dungeon. The Valley of Cinders is notorious for its horrible drop rates. A rank 6 dungeon. Its quirk is that each time you're in the dungeon, the final boss behind the lava fall is chosen randomly from a total of 10 possible options, all with their own loot tables. In practice, this means that if you're looking for a specific drop, you have a 1 in 10 chance that the boss you want to show up is there, and then you need to get lucky. What's worse is it's not uncommon for players to leave upon discovering the final boss isn't the one they wanted, instead of helping kill it. Don't be that elf.
Yeah, don't be a fucking party jumper.
So how did you handle this one, Diamond? Because that sounds like a lot of potential prep that you have to do, unless you're just like, if this is the one that appears.
I created 10 monsters, and then I took like a variety of different items I could have possibly given the party, and create different variants based on the monster that I put before them. Interesting.
How did you handle making magic items, by the way, in the game? Because I know the DLC mentions a couple by name, but what?
It was like the way I did it with Sega, like with Elf Lines, where it still needed to be just kind of a little bit meh. You would get +1 magic sword.
Sure.
What does it do? Well, you roll with +1.
It's an excellent quality sword, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And every once in a while there'd be like other odd and end items that I'd produced out there.
Sure.
Also, I allowed the Golem's Heart because it's a 2-handed shield to be a very heavy melee weapon.
Oh, that's
that cool. Can be used. Just that way, the bark shield of that party had the means to continue to use it
to fight. Yeah. That's makes sense. Well, and then that also, I think, lends to the idea that, like, yeah, these items are really powerful and they remain good for a long, long period of time. Oh my goodness. Matt Nahat, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, raiders. We are talking through all of the things ELO. We're about halfway-ish through Daeric Sylar's guide to ELO. And
We have Charred Grove.
yeah,
This
Charred Grove.
one. So Charred Grove, it's a rank 6 dungeon. So to understand, they kind of give it like the pacing for when the players should level. And this one, most elves fully clear once, as talking to the spirit of Ethanox after beating the final boss is required to enter the Twisted Elder Tree, which we'll get there in a bit. The dungeon, it's linear and story driven, much like the Empty Vein, except when you follow the spirit of Ethanox through the dungeon, you'll be fighting them twice as they go mad with grief while reliving their burning at the hands of the warlock. These restless spirits are very, very deadly. This guy, I kept lighting the party members on fire with Ethanox. It was great. And also the sword that Ethanox dropped that catches a target deadly on fire was fantastic.
Yeah. No, that's hilarious. So next is the Whispering Cave, which is now we're into rank 7. So the rank 7 dungeon added during the first Continental Brands cross promotion. Oh boy, they have cross promotions. Let's go.
Oh boy.
Its the most notable loot is the Whispering Orb, a guaranteed drop from the Whispering Ones. Once every 5 minutes, the orb allows you to determine the direction of the closest player outside your elf line who is not wearing a Shadow's Charm. It goes without saying that this item is required for serious PvP. The Whispering Ones are 8 elite cursed heads, each with a different rune on their forehead: star, circle, diamond, triangle, moon, square, cross, skull. To defeat the boss, every head must be killed in a specific order, which changes whenever Continental Brands re-releases Sacred Herbs Kibble. The new code is printed inside every bag at the bottom and is specific to the server the batch was originally intended for. Oh my god. So, okay.
However, there's more.
There's more. Oh, there is. It isn't always easy to find this info on the data pool. Complications can cause a server to go down for weeks without access to this necessary PvP tool. The codes change the moment a new promotion is announced, and shipping delays are common. Entire batches have arrived with codes unreadable due to bag grease. Once, Night City codes were swapped with Tokyo's, and it was 2 months before a Sea Nomad Shum came through with the community. Bottom line, when you hit rank 7, don't wait to do this dungeon or you'll regret it. I love that so much. Holy shit.
You have to make an outside purchase in order to play in game.
I mean, it's not like I've ever done that in Final Fantasy XIV. I totally don't have the Chocopoke amount from the Butterfingers cross promotion or the pizza emote from the Grubhub cross promotion. Yeah, I've got a problem.
Complete this dungeon, though, you have to make that purchase with Continental Brands.
Yeah, it's a little more egregious, but I've done it for less. Anyway, next up we got the Rotten Grotto, which is another rank 7 dungeon that's very rarely run due to its proximity to Scorched Pass, and because it requires one elemental slime dropped in Dripping Cove each time you want to enter. This is a shame because I love this dungeon. I love the satisfying squishing noises the slimes make when you kill them and how it echoes on the cave walls. It's just unfortunate that you're always one Whispering Orb ping from being neck deep in the sweatiest PKs you've ever seen when you run it. Bare minimum, do it once to get the key to the Temple of Slime, keep that SFX slider all the way up, and then sneak back late at night to farm it properly. Dude, this is literally just like, how we always say BGM 114? This dude just literally dropped SFX 100. I love that so much. And I get that's probably also a safety strat, because if you're getting PK'd all the time, you hear him coming if you can hear the thing bouncing off the walls. Next up, Temple of Slime, which is our first rank 8 dungeon that splits up into 3 wings, all of which have to be completed in succession each time you run it. With a combined clear time of 6 hours, it is by far the longest dungeon in the game. Whenever a player enters the Temple of Slime, which requires the key of the Rotten Grotto, The door locks behind them, and their character has their respawn locked to the antechamber. Only by completing the third wing of the dungeon can a character leave the temple. You better believe that people get their elves stuck here. According to the devs, this is intentional game design. I'm not a game designer, but in practice, this is pretty stupid. It just leads to a lot of people clustered in the antechamber, constantly trying to get out of here. And when PvP breaks out among the temple prisoners, there's absolutely no escape.
Oh,
Jeez.
Yeah. I had
Jesus
a fight break
Christ.
out in here.
Oh,
And
my
the
God.
party was battling other people that were absolutely losing it. But they did a pretty good job making their way through the three wings of this dungeon.
That's so funny. And Matt and a Hat, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate that. So this is our weekly podcast. We actually don't run a game on Wednesday, or at least I don't. Diamond runs
I do
hers
earlier in the night.
Yeah, so like about 3 hours before we're live with this, Diamond's running us through her game. But tonight, I think it went pretty well, honestly. I'll let Diamond kind of speak on that. Yeah. Yeah.
It was a lot of prep work for a hit job you guys have coming up soon.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Razor Fire Caverns.
Yep.
Like what was mentioned in ELO, in the original ELO expansion, Razor Fire Caverns is a rank 8 dungeon located in Mount Fire.
What a name.
Its layout is full of twists and tunnels that go nowhere. Any seasoned elf will know the correct and efficient route to get through the dungeon, which leads directly to the entrance of the altar of fire. But new elves sometimes get lost, such as Burr, who is probably lost somewhere down in there.
How do you even get here at rank 2 is the real question that I have now.
That is now, unless he was running around with the other group of people.
Hold up, there's a map at the top of this thing. I'm gonna look where Mount Fire is, because if it's in Enternox, it doesn't make any sense. But I'm here to answer that question for us. Let's see, because we're at Razor Fire Caverns, so that's R. Where's R on this map? Mount Fire is in the Scorched Lands, which is on Enternox. So yeah, somehow he got over there as a rank 2 elf. How the hell did he do that? That's incredible. Holy
Did we
shit.
discover an inconsistency? Oh, actually, that might be a great question for James Hutt.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I'll add it to our list. Let's see, how
did Burr, a rank 2 elf, end up in a rank 8 area on a completely different island that's locked between levels?
Boats being unavailable.
Prepper Jack very carefully. Well put.
I don't think it's very carefully. I think this is probably the opposite of very carefully.
But here you can find in this location the Sword of Arvish, which it's an item. It is an item. It's a long sword that makes you immune to being on fire while wielded, and the Heart of Mount Fire, which is a shield that doubles as a one-handed heavy pistol, firing incendiary ammunition with archery. And is reloaded and restored to full HP when dipping it in lava or magma. And they are standout drops, though there are so many more. So this was probably the end of the first. This was probably like the Altar of Fire here. This was probably the end of the first part of Elf Lions Online, and then the expansion hit with Port Forsaken at T, which this is at rank 9. Assuming you've bought the Miasma Lands expansion.
So this is an expansion town. That is important to note.
But yeah, if you bought the expansion, you'll gain access to a new boat at Port Treasure, and it'll take you to Port Forsaken. This is the current endgame town. but is almost always totally deserted due to it not being a major meeting point like Port Treasure is, or a huge city to hang out with your elf line like the Autumn Palace. You'll pass through here for quests and access the expansion content on the rest of the Miasma lands, but likely not do more than that.
Yep.
Which comes with dungeons and raids.
Yep. So the first of the dungeons, well, the dungeon, I believe, because I think there's just the one dungeon here. Yep. So the dungeon is the Bog of Shadows, which is a rank 9 dungeon. It's a new pre-raid dungeon after the Miasma Lands expansion. Most of the loot here is extremely overpowered, designed to brute force less organized elf lines through Pit of Dragons, and onto new raid content in Warlock's Tower in the heart of Miasma. When it released, the community initially disliked this and derided it to yet another ghost escort dungeon, but changed their mind once Warlock's Tower was released with its massive difficulty spike. You're a tank, you'll want to get the Shadow Plate here, a full plate armor that instantly repairs itself to full SP after you suffer a critical injury. Quest chains started from the ghosts that lead you to the Twisted Elder Tree. Quest change started from the ghosts here. Yeah, there we go. Lead you to the Twisted Elder Tree and Flooded Palace raids, so be sure to pick those up. When completed, you can access a secret area in a crypt below the Quicksand Pit at the beginning of the dungeon with Zarzamel the Cursed, an elite dragon that drops the Ring of Dragonkind. It was added in the Miasma Lands expansion to make the Pit of Dragons raid easier. So they nerfed their content. FYI, that's what that is right there. Next, we have the Twisted Elder Tree. Once you hit rank 10, endgame raiding content opens up to you. So Nyla, I hope you're still listening, because this is where things are for you. So bent and unbroken, you must defeat the final Elder Tree of the Elfland, or defend the final Elder Tree of the Elflands to spare Arvish the Doom of Enternox. So once you hit rank 10, endgame raiding content opens up to you. Most elves aren't ready to jump directly into, most elves aren't ready to jump right into this in the second they hit 10. You, of course, aren't most elves, having followed my leveling guide. You already have access to Twisted Elder Tree, having completed Charred Grove. Once you've gathered 6 other members of your elf line, talk to Tree Guardian Selena to begin the siege. When the raid starts, hordes of monsters will spawn and rush the base of the tree. Defeat them, and 2 packs of elite monsters will spawn, one at the top of the giant tree and one at the bottom. You'll need to split the party and fight both at the same time. The gimmicks don't stop there. Once one group of elite monsters is slain, a pair of dragons flies over the Elder Tree, dropping a random boss from the Valley of Cinders lava fall at each end of the tree. Infuriatingly, when killed, they drop no loot. Once both bosses are slain, the elite dragons Miasma Fire Kettle and Miasma Frost Narvix land at the top and bottom of the Elder Tree. The dragons must be fought separately. When the first dragon is slain, the weapon that was used to strike the killing blow begins to glow. At 1 HP, the remaining dragon becomes immune to all damage except damage caused by that glowing weapon. If you are this player, you've got to dash to the other end of the Elder Tree, or the resulting wipe will be all your fault. The most valuable drop by the raid is the coveted Scarlet Black Bow, the only 2-rated fire bow in the game. If it drops, expect a loot argument to break out. I've been in those. It's a lot. So when you started getting into the raids here, Diamond, how did you handle those?
I handled it as the party was doing their own thing through the raid. And when they got to this point, we went through the process of it. And, well, one of them got the Sword of Fire and had to make their way up the tree to, up to Narvix to land the killing blow. Before everyone ran out of time.
That's beautiful.
And then we have the Flooded Palace, the wonder of the first elves, which sunk to the bottom of the sea. Slime now rules its throne. No longer merely semi-animate, they have taken drowned elves as hosts. This infestation must not be allowed to spread. This is the shortest raid in the game, lasting only 2 hours. 2 white-knuckled and sweaty, stressful hours that can ultimately be all for nothing. This raid breaks the fledgling raiding elf lines over its wet, slimy knee. It's that raid.
It's that raid, the one that's like this is in this game what I imagine as Nyla was describing P8S was in Final Fantasy, which is like you enter here a tiny babu of a player, and then you leave here in Ultra Chad or with a broken raid static. One of two ways, and there's no in between. So that is hilarious.
So,
yeah.
First off, it's not even available all the time. The raid can only be entered when the flooded palace's entrance is above water. And at the time, a special boat becomes available at Port Treasure. And there's only one boat available per day, and nobody has managed to work out what triggers this. But while available, the first elf line to sign up 7 participants with Captain Pointy Ear Ravish is swiftly teleported onto the one-way boat to hell. Once the boat arrives, the 3-hour timer starts, and a message is sent to the entire server, and recording begins. That's right. In this raid, not only are you timed, but you also have an audience. And anyone on the server can watch the raid live in any tavern, which in 2 hours, your 7-member team has to defeat 4 randomly generated bosses with the abilities of elite slime tacked onto them, in randomly generated locations inside the Labyrinth Palace, and acquire their orbs, and to take them to the throne room and summon the final boss, Mother of Slime. An elite slime with 70 HP who summons 1 child of slime at 75% health, and 2 at 50% health, and 3 which explode like the Draglins, which are monsters that are, Draglins are tiny dragons that when they hit 0 HP, they explode like a grenade.
Yeah.
And remember how all this effort can be for nothing? Because none of the bosses in the Flooded Palace drop any loot. All the loot received is from the chest in the room that opens up after Mother of Slime dies. And if the time runs out before then, the palace sinks and you get nothing. And are teleported in shame to the Temple of Slime antechamber. That's right, you go back there. And once your raiding elf line gets publicly humiliated like that, get slimed. Yeah, that's an emote. You can throw slime.
Yeah, I love
it's hard
this.
to recruit. Consider paying 20 eddies to have your elf line name changed.
Jesus Christ, it's like, oh, reputation breaker. Then we got the Pit of Dragons, which is accessed by a boat at Port Treasure, which requires at least 1 member of your elf line to have completed the Twisted Elder Tree raid to charter. The raid is divided into 3 rounds with cutscenes between them. Each round of the ritual combat is unique and must be completed in order and in 1 attempt, or the raid is failed and cannot be retried by anyone in your elf line again for a week. In the first round, 2 players will be selected from your party at random to face the elite dragon Carvox the Wise. Should they succeed, these elves can pat themselves on the back and go make a sandwich, because they won't be needed for the rest of the raid. In Nature's Thorns, we assign the first round elves to be tournament announcers for the rest of the raid. It keeps morale up and is a ton of fun. In the second round, the dragons choose 4 of the remaining pool of elves to fight the hardest boss in the raid, Verksam the Ancient, an elite dragon with 120 HP. This fight is made much easier if your tank is the Sword of Arvish, but isn't as required as the forums seem to think. In the final round, the elf who has not yet gotten to fight is pitted against the upstart dragon Wolvar the Brash, who interrupts his mother just as she's about to forgive all of Elfkind, demanding single combat. Despite being a non-elite dragon, this is by no means easy, and one slip can mean disaster, especially if the final elf in your raid is a less experienced player or has a less combat-optimized build. Just like with the Flooded Palace, all loot in the Pit of Dragons is saved until after the final round, giving this 1v1 fight high stakes. After listening to player feedback, the devs introduced the Ring of Dragonkind in the Miasma Lands expansion. It allows an elf with the ring to interject during the cutscene to fight Wolvar the Brash instead of the final elf in the party. Personally, I don't like this change. I think it was more exciting the old way, and my elfline never got bent out of shape about it even when we lost a week. Wolvar's Blessing is a fantastic necklace that drops from here. It allows an elf to wield a great axe in a single hand. Dragon scale armor and helms are also super important piece of loot from this raid. They're leather armor with a whopping 10 SP. You'll need them in Warlock's Tower. And then we get to that one.
The Warlock's Tower, the seat of evil on the Elflands, must be toppled. Only the bravest elves will be able to be up to the task. Without 7 elves and the right gear, success is impossible. In the career of raiding, and in the career of a raiding elfline, this is the progress becomes slow, and it's all about filling up the gaps in your elfline's gear. You won't succeed in the raid until everyone is dripping in loot. And likely you'll need to backtrack into previous raids to remedy this. To understand the Warlock's Tower, it's a huge jump in enemy quality. Basically, this is the raid that takes all the other raids and all the other dungeons and just pushes your characters into the muck. And there's major bosses that become very, very, very dangerous to deal with. And how do I put this? Basically, this is the action sequence leading up into the climax. And you fight against the Warlock's other experiments, and make sure you have, Shadow Plate, Scarlet Black Bow, Dragon Armor, whatever you have to make sure that you can get through this fight. And I made sure that this one hit heavy when I did it for another group.
I love how they complain about the fact that they use the model for the ancient hero from the Elflines Online Chronicles, which is the TV show for this, and not the original games model. They're like, no, they should have used the game model. It was better. It's so funny. It's like actually real.
Of course, you have a 3-phase fight with an elite Ruthless Spirit with 100 hit points. And there's the ability to, the Warlock has the ability to drain hit points over time.
Yeah, and then you got to kill them by not just hitting them to 0, but also critting them. So you actually don't win until you crit them, which is insane. Finally, we get to the heart of miasma. So muster all your strength, your virtue, your guile, your heart, and all of the elflines. For tonight, we will end this scourge upon our elflands and become heroes. Well, look at you. I told you I'd get you to the heart of miasma, and look where you are, together with your whole elfline at the foot of Mount Poison. Heart of miasma isn't like the raids you've done up till now. It will feel easier than Warlock's Tower, but that's just because you're properly geared. It's actually rather similar in difficulty. Are you ready for the catch? Heart of Miasma requires 4 elflines to fully complete, so you'll need to form alliances across your server. The raid is divided into 4 chambers, each dedicated to the 4 main cornerstones of the game, with separate entrances on Mount Poison. Once per week, an elfline that has completed Warlock's Tower can enter one of these chambers, assuming it's unoccupied for 3 hours. It is possible to complete a chamber with only a single elfline all the way up to the final boss, which is inaccessible unless 4 chambers are completed simultaneously within the same 3-hour period. More on that in a second. So then it goes through, and I'm not gonna, because we're already like pushing 2 hours since we actually started talking. But it goes through describing each of the wings and then what happens in the beginning here. And it does tease at the end the next expansion. So yeah, we're gonna have to talk to James about that. The rest of this particular DLC goes through and talks about different monsters and what they look like if they're made to be elite. And the guide above it gives some other ideas as well for, like, if you want to take one of these monsters and make them into a raid boss. what that looks like, or a dungeon boss, what that looks like. And there's all kinds of little mentions about like what each monster, like, you know, there's nothing like slaying your first dragon. There's, you know, there's basically like a little talk, a little blurb about each of the first several monsters. But so this will give you like a bestiary essentially, as well as like a basic campaign guide to running ELO, which is pretty good. Diamond, I'm really sad.
What's
because we're nearly out of time for the episode this week. But man, I really want to talk about the Elflines TCG. I really do.
How many questions do we have?
We've got at least 2, I believe, because there was one that I had from LCC, and there was one that was it's kind of a question, but it's one I wanted to kind of answer, which is wonders what TTRPGs exist in the time of the Red, and do people play Cyberpunk in Night City? And I actually have an answer for that. Yeah.
You know, I had an idea.
What's up?
Maybe for an episode we talk about Elflines TCG, but then on the other half of the episode we play Elflines the TCG.
I'm down 100%. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Next week we're playing ELO TCG.
Next week. All right. Sounds
all right.
Good.
Bet. All right. Cool, guys.
All
We
right.
figured it out. So you'll have to wait till next week for our ELO TCG review mega episode. Because I'm gonna get fucking serious about this.
Oh. Okay. I'm not a very good card game player, so
You're gonna learn, Diamond. It's time to get sweaty. Let's go. So, Diamond, to start with, do you have any questions over on your end of things?
I have received like no questions, but I have or actually, is Daeric the true NEET? Well, he's not employed, educated, or in a trade.
I mean, he's a pro streamer. That's basically how I write him in, because he starts early on as being employed. It sounds like a bodega, and then
it sounds like he's a bodega clerk.
Yeah, and then once he says he gets laid off from that, and then it sounds as though he becomes a full-time like online content creator. So it depends, I guess, on how you consider NEET, because if we follow that same definition, I would be a NEET, and that is I don't consider myself a NEET. I think I add something to the community in enough of a way. That's God damn it, Diamond. Don't do that. Don't encourage them. So yeah, I would say, I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thought on it, but I don't think he's a NEET. I think he's a professional streamer.
He's not sitting on his duff all day.
Right. Yeah, like he's definitely doing stuff. He's just not doing like regular employment stuff or edge running. He's different than that.
Though I do think, if anything, Daeric is probably a rocker boy.
Yeah, I would say so.
Mm-hmm.
Either rocker boy or media, or maybe he's a blend of them. I could see it.
Yeah.
Because what was the hybrid for a streamer? Because there was one for like an influencer or a streamer, right?
Yeah, that's a rocker boy media.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's pretty much what I would think he is.
So I think with that, what other questions do we have? Let's go ahead and knock them out.
Yeah. So the one I got from Prepper Jack earlier, it was kind of a half question, but it counts in my opinion. Is what TTRPGs exist in Night City? So we
actually have an answer.
Yes, we see many times in many different things of art for DLCs. We see people playing a fantasy-based tabletop RPG, and
collecting the random.
Yep, in collecting the random, we see this specifically. and we know that it is Elfline's The TTRPG. It does exist in the universe, and
Red Eye happens to be a GM.
Oh yeah, Red Eye's a GM, and I was gonna say Jay Gray also commented that he said, what was it? It was 100 eddies per book, and you need 3 of them to even play the game. Plus any, or you get the app and pay for a monthly subscription to get it all for like half the price.
Do you know how much that triggered me?
Oh, I heard it. I heard the pain in your voice during the interview, and it made me laugh so hard. It was so funny. Because I'm like, I see what you're doing, Jay.
Speaking of Cyberpunk there, Prepper Jack, you might laugh, but hold on to your britches there for a sec. I might actually have an answer for you. In regards to does Cyberpunk exist? In fact, in that very same book, Collecting the Random, in Mr. K's Mr. K's Collectors.
Yep.
Someone wants a signed first edition of Mike Puddleforge's TTRPG, Cyborg Anarchist. All you got to do is find Mike Puddleforge, which the only image we have of Mike Puddleforge is on a page in the Cyberpunk Red core rulebook, and also he's wearing the Skid Row trench in Black Chrome, which honestly we should have gotten Maximum Mike in Danger Gal Dossier. We really should have gotten Maximum Mike. Like,
one of these days.
Please.
but yeah, Puddleforge Games is a thing in universe. So yes, there is a version of Cyberpunk that is canonical, and actually, other fun fact, you can find the Cyberpunk 2020 core rulebook as a data shard in 2077. It does exist. So in a third-party like rip-off kind of way, it exists, and in a quite literal sense, it does exist in universe.
Wait a minute. Oh, so that means Cyberpunk 2020 is canon in Cyberpunk Red because it exists in Cyberpunk.
Yes. Yep. The core rulebook exists as a data shard in 77, so I have to assume that it exists in the time of the Red.
That means because whatever in Cyberpunk 2020 is canon to what's in 2077, somebody wrote everything in 2020 as...
Now understand why the Blue Eye thing in 77, why that mystery is such a mindfuck, but it makes total sense that we're living in a simulation in 77. Like, that's the large theory behind the entire Magenta mystery, is because of some of the stuff we find, and like the I forget what it was. It was like a specific like electron voltage or whatever that they display. Like, our universe only exists the way that it does because this specific particle is charged at a very specific amount. You change that even a little bit, it changes everything about the universe. And that's a part of the Magenta mystery. So very deep dive, very fucking nerdy, but like if you go deep enough, it's down there.
Oh gosh, we need yeah. Wouldn't that make for an interesting episode? That just becomes, or like maybe that becomes just a YouTube special in itself.
We talk about the Magenta mystery.
Hats.
Yeah.
We just put on I need to get like a tinfoil hat asset for my model.
I've got a roll of foil downstairs. I'll make myself a little hat and everything. I will. If we want to do that for an episode in the future, Diamond Dive, I'm there for it. I'm 100% there for it. But that'll require some research. Because that is a deep dive. So yeah, we do know though that Cyberpunk in both those forms does exist in Night City. We also can assume that Dungeons and Dragons exists in Night City because Fun fact, and I think I mentioned this in a video. If I haven't yet, it's one that'll be coming out very soon.
That we here on the podcast.
Yeah, it's one of those things where this is the 50th year of tabletop RPGs existing, because it's also the 50th year of Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, that would also be canonical at that point. Traveler would also exist. Probably World of Darkness. I think World of Darkness predates 1990.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean there's quite a few that would still fall canonically within, and whether they survive the wars and all of that, that's anyone's guess. But like, we know they at the very least have the potential to be canonically present at that point. Warhammer and GURPS, yep, those will both exist as well. So yeah, all that shit would exist, which is awesome.
Oh, hey. In 1973, Dungeons and Dragons, 1974 Dungeons and Dragons was officially premiered on April 20th through the 23rd at EasterCon.
Holy shit, we're 3 days from that. That's wild, actually.
Wow.
That's such an appropriate thing to figure out right now. That's insane. Holy shit. D&D turns 50 on 420. What a fucking mindfuck. That is beautiful. I love it.
Gosh.
Next up, thank you. I have it. Ooh. I got pizza. What is... I don't need this now, but thank you, also.
Yes, Everwife. Yes. Yeah. Yes. All right, I gotta find a tinfoil hat asset somewhere.
You're wondering if I'm...
Yeah.
Not Big Brother.
But my wife just wants you all to know she's listening. So I'll keep that. I'll keep that one off to the side for when we need that later.
Conspiracy days.
Either that, or I'll pull it out every time I start talking about something batshit insane. So with that said, I'm so sorry, Diamond. You had it sounded like you had a thought there beyond just.
With that in mind, though, when you really think about it, like, you know, TTRPGs will exist because dice do exist, and also all sorts of other implements do exist, except for paper and pencils, because who uses those nowadays? What are you? Some sort of rich person?
Yeah, but you probably buy like a stylus for like 5 eddies at your local bodega that works with an agent, and just do that instead.
Mm-hmm. Or, you know, you have like a companion app specifically for it,
which costs you 50 eddies a month.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because Elflines Online does, in fact, have a companion app that is, 50 eds a month, which we talked about in All About Agents. The other thing is, like with, Red Eye, and I promise there's no conspiracy here, but she is she's a trans woman. She's a net runner. She also enjoys GMing.
Well, Diamond, you're kind of 3 for 3 there. Do you have anything you want to admit to the class?
Well, Red Eye was my first choice of a character. Oh fuck!
All we're missing is the revelation in universe that Red Eye is also technically a streamer of some kind, and streams with her like net avatar.
No, but she did definitely run away from all of her family issues because she did not want to deal with her family anymore.
Touche.
Anyway, next question.
Well, wow, Diamond, wouldn't you know? We're all out of questions. Guess we got to sit on this one a little. No. I'm just kidding.
What's the other question?
The other question.
Jesus asked something here. What's the question, Jesus?
The question was, if your players are trying to buy level 10 ELO characters, do you let them build the resulting level 10 they're buying, or do they get what they get and therefore have the possibility of being scammed, and have that kind of like buyer beware element be a present part of that.
If you don't make that shit a fucking scam, what are you doing? Choom, that is the best way to get one over on your players in that kind of sense. You don't want to enjoy the fun of, playing some ELO and you just want to be, rank 10 character. You're going to get a naked rank 10, just the most balanced character you can get.
Yeah.
I think Wayfarer or whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Yep.
Or they're ranked 10, but they happen to have, like, the name happens to have a terrible reputation on the Knights of the Air Gap.
Or another thought: the guy who sold you the rank 10 stole it from another player, and now that player wants you dead because you have that character, and they assume you were the thief.
Hey, I heard this one before.
Yeah.
But let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, you could be a rank 10 character, but somebody didn't pay off the revive sickness on this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see on the profile like a picture of this rank 10 character all modeled up in high-end gear, but it's naked when you get it. Like, and no, I don't believe that that the players should be able to create the character. They are taking a risk on buying something they may not know much about.
Like, I think that there is a world in which they can kind of test the reputation of the seller or the fixer that's hooking this up, just like any other good, right? Because it's just as reasonable to expect that if the fixer they're going through isn't reputable, but they don't check that they could get scammed with some malfunctioning piece of shit hardware for a gun or cyberware or whatever too, Meteor brain gens didn't become ubiquitous for nothing.
Oh, what do you mean? They absolutely nothing bad happened with the MediaWare brain gen.
I didn't say anything bad happened.
Not one bad.
No. I didn't say anything bad happened, but they became ubiquitous for a reason, even though they're cheap pieces of shit that have no other problems.
It definitely wasn't the cause of any issues in Team Law and Disorder at all.
Oh,
not
yeah.
one bit.
No, not at all. But yeah.
Well, oh, question here.
Oh, what's your question?
Received a DM of a question here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Daeric Sylar will ever find out the truth about Susan?
Great question. No, I think his head is as dense as a brick. Probably not.
Oh.
Not unless Susan comes out and says it 100% and tells him, "You fucking moron, I'm Morlissa."
Well, the fact that they're neighbors and he doesn't hear Morlissa, like Susan, talking to him.
It's brain dance. That's why. He couldn't.
Oh, right. Yep. She wears a lot of black makeup, stares a lot, sounds kind of like, hey.
Oh my gosh.
That's kind of nice. Anyway. What? Okay.
Diamond went from, "Oh, that's cute," to, "Oh my god, that's actually so fucking funny," to, "Hey, Morlissa kind of sounds like my type."
I mean, look, there's something about, some really sharp, sharp lines in the makeup, just great looking, stunning. But you know what? Watch as it turns out, Susan, might actually have some ranks in something. Watch as that becomes a street story. Like, Cyberpunk Red, Tales of the Red Street Stories too. Honestly, that would be kind of like the equivalent to a bucket full of popcorn flavored kibble.
Could be.
Where we do something, where you do something like that.
In before we predict a future Cyberpunk Red product and Tales of the Red Street Stories, Elfland Invasion, or something like that. where it's just literally a 6 adventure campaign centered around ELO.
Oh,
I'd
goodness,
be
my model. Oh, tracking. Hello. Ah,
tracking.
there we go.
Yeah.
Ah, fixed it. I am free. Okay. People, why are you sending me questions on Discord? You could just drop it in my chat.
They might want to ask them
Okay.
privately. I respect that. I respect that. You can DM them to me too, people. I am also, my DMs are open.
Another great question here. So, what if you wanted to reskin a weapon to be a different style? I mean, I don't see why that's an issue.
I think it depends what they mean by that.
Like, instead of it being a great axe, make it a great sword. Two-handed yet.
Sure. I mean, as long as functionally they wouldn't be that different for stat purposes, I see no problem with that. Because
I
like,
smell a Dark Knight.
right.
I'm gonna start snail mailing my questions, Superman.
Yeah, no, fair.
Where are you gonna send it to?
Yeah, don't ask that question if you don't want the answer. That's a dangerous question to ask for an answer on. Let me see here. Because I'm curious. Let me see here. So, dagger, short sword, long sword, great axe, shield, bow, arrow, poison. Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with that. Especially, your table's your table. If you think a greatsword should be a thing, greatsword's a thing. But yeah, I think you just have to make that choice, right? But yeah, I mean, in ELO, magic items also exist too. And you could think of it this way, right? There's going to be some person out there who desperately, and I mean desperately, hates the fact that there's only great axes for two-handed weapons until one day, as an event crossover, Kang Tao has a limited edition quest that rewards a great sword in a very limited, low chance drop at the end of an event dungeon. And everyone under the sun wants to go in to make their attempt at getting that great sword. And you could turn that whole thing into an adventure. I think that that's another really, really good way of like pulling content out.
Another question here. So I could literally have my entire shtick be I make money doing hits for a fixer on Elf Lions players who are being a bit too much of a pain in the ass for them.
Yes,
Or
you could.
Segatari as well.
Yeah, Segatari could be like, look, we keep getting tickets opened about this one asshole, Blarius the Bold, and this fucker is like constantly flatlining people in the game. We need him flatlined permanently. So we're offering you 1,000 eddies ahead to go to this dude. We have his address. We have all the pertinent details you need. Save, keys to his security system to get you to him and hopefully take him out. And then, yeah, just make that a gig and like complicate it as you will.
You could just send somebody to just go keep player killing him and get him more and more frustrated to make it easier to locate him.
Yeah. A solo that's a server mod for the NC Air Gap. Ooh.
Yo,
There you go.
like, that was a thought that, there was just, at the end of Eddie's and Elf Lines, for anyone who hasn't watched the series, it's okay. It's a bit long. Segatari wanted the idea of creating very intelligent NPCs without having to spend all the money on AI. So why not just use human resources to go out and hire all these great actors?
Yep.
And then, we get them some nice comfy dweller chairs and get them hooked up to these nice comfy dweller chairs and give them some feeding tubes and, other means to take care of themselves. And boom, you're now just an NPC.
Diamond, have I ever sent you the music video for the song Icarus by Starset? Have I ever sent that over to you?
Oh gosh. Did I reference something accidentally?
Oh, I need to show that to you if I haven't, if you don't remember it specifically. Basically, they do something very similar to that in the music video. I'll explain the whole deep dive to you later because it's a bit of a story, and I don't want to take up our QA time. But yeah, it's a thing. Those of you in the audience who want to find some neat little techno rock music, Starset Icarus is the thing. It's got its own music video. It's very cyberpunk. That whole band's thing, their whole motif is very cyberpunk. So check them out.
Honestly, I was thinking about it. A solo, maybe Segatari gives this solo like a bodysuit that reflects what they do. It gives them just a big room to run around in. So it's just, they're not limited to basic brain dance capability. They've got much more. They can use their entire body for what they're doing to beat the shit out of people.
Have the game. Do we know what the game director is of ELO?
No,
we will after tomorrow.
Segatari.
We will after tomorrow. I'm gonna put that on the list.
You mean Joshua Hunt?
Yeah, Jericho Hunt is the lead director. Jericho. Who is the lead producer of ELO? I am putting this on our list for tomorrow. James, if you're watching, we're gonna have some unhinged questions for you.
I swear, if it's a spoof of the name of other directors, I'm going to enjoy it so much.
Oh, you can almost guarantee that it will be, and that's I want to see what he pulls out, because this is the thing. Even if this isn't something that normally we would get an answer from, I have confidence in James's ability to be an unhinged game designer who will definitely give us an answer of some kind, and I just want to hear it. I just want to do that. I just want to push that. But yeah,
I think that's everything.
I don't have any more questions on my end.
Who's ready for tomorrow? Because I am.
Yeah, it's just like last time. It's not going to be live streamed, but we will be recording that, and my goal will be to get that posted after this episode goes live. That'll probably be the next episode that I post, and we'll try to get that out by Sunday, if that's reasonable. I don't know, because I'll be the one editing it. Diamond's gonna put it up on her channel though, this time, since I got Jay Gray's. So but it'll be up on Spotify and Diamond's YouTube channel, with the goal being that we have it up by probably Sunday evening, so that it's only like 24 hours after this one, to kind of align with how we did it in real time.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, in that case then, I'm Diamond Dust.
And I am Emmerron.
We're Wireheads, and I suppose with any further questions, you can send that to wireheadspods at googlegroups.com. And
Wireheads Pod, singular. Wireheads Pod at googlegroups.com. Yeah. You're good. But no, ultimately, I hope everyone has a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever they are. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you all next week, if not sooner. So beyond that, peace.
Bye.